So far, whatever the Java programs that we have written. So far, we have written some programs. So we'll write this program within our Eclipse platform. For example, if this is Eclipse based program, then we'll be having the project data here, the name of the project, package, class, everything here only, correct? Then we write some code, then we save it, we execute it, and then finally we see the output also of the program. Output also of within Eclipse or outside Eclipse? Within Eclipse only. So in Eclipse only, there is a one window called as console window. So there we'll be seeing the output of our program. So far we have written everything of this one only. Yeah. But can we have the input from outside? Input from outside. Then that we can display in our Eclipse. And also from our Eclipse, I mean from Java. From Java, Eclipse is just a platform. From outside to Java and from out Java to outside. This is a outside file. Did you do anything of that sort? No, we did so far everything within Eclipse based only, but we didn't move out of the Eclipse as of now. Even when we are using scanner class also, the input from console only, output in the console only, but we never moved out of that. So here, there is a concept called files in Java, which makes us to interact with the outside Java files also. Like, for example, I have some file on desktop, some text file. Then can I write something into the text file from Java program? And also, can we read whatever is there in the text file into our Java program? There is a possibility. It's possible. That's called as a files concept. There is a concept called files, which makes us to interact with the outside files of the Java also. So that is where we'll be discussing about the files concept. So in this files concept, so we'll be using some predefined classes. Already I used file reader while discussing the checked exceptions example, right? So file reader, then IO exception is one more thing while closing the files. So those things we already used it, but we didn't discuss much clearly about what is that. Okay. So in this files concept, there is a class called file. File, it's a predefined class. File is it is a predefined class. Then what is the purpose of this file? For example, whenever we are using a file object in memory or in RAM or memory, whenever we have this file class object, say for example, file space class name space some variable name equals new class name, then followed by the class, I mean the path of file. I'm using double quotes, means in string format you have to give. This is object creation. So whenever we create this object, this F will refer to that location. This F object in the memory will refer to that location. But file class doesn't bother about whether the file is there or not there. File class has no capacity to check a file is there or not there. If it is there or not there, blindly it will just point to that location. That's all. That's what the purpose of a file class. Okay. And if a file is not there, are we going to get an error? File class has no capacity. That's why even though when you're using it, file class doesn't bother about file is there or not there. Then if it's not there, does a file has a capacity to create the file? For example, I am using some text file here, something like abc.txt in this file path, but abc file is not there in my desktop, on my desktop. But then the file class has capacity to create that file and then point to that object, or it will just blindly point to that object. It will just blindly point to that object. File class has no capacity to create a new file. File class has no capacity to create new file, to create new file when if a file doesn't exist. If file doesn't exist. That's a just introduction of what is this file and in which package all these are present. All these predefined classes which I'm going to discuss in this entire files concept. So they all are present in the package name called as java.io. This is the package in which all file related classes are present. Okay. This is the package name. File class, file reader, file writer, all those things are present in this package. Then we have to import that to use in our Java program. We have to import it. Okay. So this is just only file. Then for writing content, from Java program into external file for writing. So there is a predefined class called file writer. File writer. So as the name itself gives the meaning that it will write into the file. File writer, again, it is a predefined class. File writer is a predefined class present in java.io package. What's the purpose of it? File writer, I am writing short form FW. File writer will write content into file. Content into file. What's the meaning of content? I want to write one line called Java is platform independent. That line I want to write into one external file from Java program. Then that's where we'll be using this file writer. I want to write some letters A, B, C, D and all. Then we'll be using the file writer object to write that content there. Okay. So that's the purpose of it. File writer will write the content into file, but in which format it will write is, it will write in character by character format only. One character by character, char by char format. For example, if you want to write something Java is platform independent into a file by using file writer, then first Java J A V A, like that it will take only one character after the other characters. That's all. It will not take the entire line at once. That's the purpose of this file writer. Then file writer can communicate with a file directly. It means with a path. File writer can communicate with the file directly. It doesn't need any help of this file class. File writer class doesn't need any help of file class. It can interact directly with the file. In diagrammatic format, I'll explain in the next slide. But here, file writer can communicate with file directly. What do you mean by directly? Without any reference of file class. File class object is not required. That's what I mean. Yeah. Then does file class has a capacity to create the file if file doesn't exist? File class has the capacity to create the file? No capacity. But then file writer can create the file? File writer can create the file? Yes. File writer FW class can create the file if file doesn't exist. With example, you'll understand all these points much more clearly. For example, I am using a file name called as abc.txt, example, roughly. Then that file is not there, but I am using that file path in the file writer object. Then file writer can create the file and then it will write it. It has that capacity. So then there is one more point. File writer class has one limitation. What's the limitation is, by default, whenever we are writing the content into a file, everything will be written in one line only. For example, the expected result in file is in one some abc.txt file. There is a file. My intention is I want to write A first line, B in next line, C in next line. Like that, this is the format I want to write the content. But whenever you are writing file writer by using file writer, by default, it will not write like this. It will write in the same line, A, B, C, D, E, F. Default is that's the nature. That's the nature of file writer. Then what programmer has to do? We have to use the New line approach. New line approach. So for that, anybody aware of escape sequences? /T for tab space, /T for tab space, /N for new line, next line, like that. They are called as escape sequences. So then for appearing our content in each line separately, then every time programmer has to use a new line. /N we have to use, programmer has to use, otherwise default nature will come into the picture. Same line approach only. So that is one drawback of this file data. Yeah, that's one drawback. So then, so here file data class can create the file if file doesn't exist. And by default, the method of file writer will write the content in same line. Will write content in same line. By default nature, that is. Then what we have to do? Use /n is the escape sequence to write content in separate lines. It's every time programmer has to write it whenever we want the new line. Otherwise, default nature will come into the picture. That will print everything in the, that will write everything in the same line only. That's the limitation of this file data. Yeah. And what kind of data that we can write? Can we write letters into the file? Alphabets, I mean, single letters. Yes, we can write. Can we write sentences? Yes, we can write. Can we write numbers? No, we cannot write. By using file data, we can write only character, group of characters only. We can't write numbers. We can't write true or false. We can't write floats. We can't write long. We can't write decimals and all those things. That is also one more limitation of this file data. Multiple problems. What are these? It will write only character by character. It means even though if you want to write some 100-word sentence, it will take one letter only. Looks like delay. It will take time taking process. Then at the same time, it has the capacity of writing only in the same line by default approach, but programmer has to use the new line for changing the line. /n for writing the into separate lines. That's a second drawback. Then followed by, there is one more. We can write only limited type of content called characters, string. That's all. Okay, we can't write numbers. We can't write it. If you are writing number, it will take its ASCII value. Okay, we are writing, if you want to write 100, but 100 will become small d because that's ASCII value or ASCII character, right? So these are the limitations of the file writer. Then to overcome some of these limitations, then Java has come up with one more writer called as buffered writer. Buffered writer. All these we'll discuss with one example. First, let me complete the theory. Buffered writer. So here I am using FW. It's not an official short form, just to reduce my writing. I'm using that. So here also buffer writer. What is one of the drawback with file writer? Writing character by character. Therefore, buffer writer is a predefined class. It's a predefined class again present in IO package. I'm not writing every time. Then buffer writer will write the content in which approach? Write the content word by word, line by line, into file. One problem is solved. Previously, it will write only character by character, but buffer writer will write a line by line. Yeah, the interesting stories will come when I go for a diagrammatic approach of the same discussion. So, but buffer writer has one solution. Then in file writer, what is one more problem? Programmer has to write /n for writing the content into next line. So by default, buffer writer also will write the same. By default, buffer writer will write the content in same line. It's same as a file header only. But what is the solution? What that file header has? /n for content to write in the next lines in file writer. But when it comes to buffer writer, so we have a method called as new line method. New line parenthesis is a method. This is a method. New line method need to be used. I mean, we have to use this new line method to write content in next lines. To write content in separate lines. So more or less the problem is same only. There we have to use the escape sequence, mandatory. Otherwise, you'll get in same line. Here, instead of escape sequence called /n, we have to use a new line, new line, new line every time. More or less, the problem remains same. Yeah, a different way of solution, but not a generalized solution. So this is one more thing. And the important point is buffer writer can't communicate with file. With file, what it needs? Buffer writer needs what? File writer object. Without this file writer, buffer writer cannot communicate with a file directly. Understood? And if don't have a file, if we don't have a file, buffer writer can create the file? No, because buffer writer needs which object? File writer. So file writer can create it, buffer writer will use it. That's what the point about this buffer writer. Yeah. So what do I mean in this entire discussion is, assume that there is a text file. There is a text file. The file name is, for example, abc.txt, where it is present somewhere in my C drive. In my C drive, maybe some on desktop with some folder. That file is present called abc.txt. Let's assume. Then I want to write some content into this file. Then we can use a file object to communicate. This is a communication channel. So there we can use a file object called f, for example. File can communicate with a file. File object can communicate with a text file to write some content. And by using this file, there is one more predefined class called as a file writer. File writer object, FW. File writer can use file object to communicate with a file, or file writer can communicate directly also with a file. Yeah, did you observe? File writer can communicate with a file directly. Yeah, without any reference of file class also. Without any reference. If you want, we can use a file object. Otherwise, this file writer can communicate with a file directly also. Then on top of this, there is a one more predefined class. What is that? Buffer writer. So this is one more channel. So let me use this, say buffer writer. Buffered writer. So I'm using BW. Buffer writer can communicate with the file directly? No, buffer writer cannot communicate. Buffer writer has to use the file writer object. Then file writer can communicate directly, or file writer can use file object to communicate to write some content into the file. This is the approach. Yeah. So even though we are using buffer writer, but buffer writer internally will use file writer. So this is the flow that we have to follow whenever we want to write some content into the file. Then file writer has some more limitations. What type of content we can write? Only characters or group of characters. Buffer writer also has the same problem. Only characters, group of characters we can write into the file. So this is about the first two writer story. Still some problems are there, right? So we'll come back and discuss about what is the solution for that. First, let me show till here through Eclipse. So for this, I have something is opened. I don't want to close. Yeah, so I'll use our project. So this is our OOPS project. Inside this SRC, let me create one new package. So I'll go for new P for package, and I'll name this as com.visiblecampus.files concept. It's not a predefined keyword. Then in this, I'll take one new class. I'll name this as a file demo is my class name. For execution, I'll take the main method. So here is a class. Yeah. So inside this, let me go for a method based approach. So for that, what I'm using, I'll take a class some test is a class name. And inside this test class, I'm taking a method with void type. So public void yum is the method. Then the body. Fine. Then followed by what is the first class to be created? File, then some f equals new file, then open and close parenthesis, semicolon. Why we are getting error? Because it's not imported. You can place your cursor, click on this import file. Otherwise, control space also will work. Then why we are getting error right hand side? This will take a string type of input. That's why it is expecting. Now any error? No. Did I give any file? Will it throw any file not found exception if file is not there? Nothing. File has no capacity, right? So for that, let me take only file path. So for this file path, I'll come to desktop. Okay, it will not allowing me to create a new one. So I'll take this folder called grats. Then here in files, I have two previous files. I delete them. So now anything is there in this? It's empty folder. Empty folder. I'm copying this path by clicking on this Control C to copy. Control C to copy. So you can see how many backward slash are there here? One, right? Now I'll go back to I will close this one. I'll close this one. I go back to Eclipse and between these double quotes I paste it. Now we observe how many backward slashes? Two are there, right? Yeah. Why two? Why two? By default, a single backward slash means escape sequence in a programming language. Yeah. But you want one for escape sequence, one more for a file path. That's why two are mandatory when you're writing a backward slash approach. Otherwise, we can write forward slash also. Single forward slash is enough because forward slash doesn't mean escape sequence. Backward slash means escape sequence. That's why two are required. One for escape sequence, one for our file path. That's why. Clear? That's the first question you have. Then in this file, I'm giving a file name called as abc.text file called txt. Done. So now to execute this, I'll create the object for this test class, some t equals new test of default constructor, then t dot yum method I'm calling. Now I save this program. I right click, go to run as, and I click on Java application. It is running or it's done? Program is running or done? Done, right? You can see the gray color. I'm pointing some square here. If this is gray, program is done. So once this is done, now what we'll do, we'll go back to the same folder and check the file is created or not created. Did it create? Do we have any abc.txt file? No. So that's what the first point is. But what this f is pointing to? F is blindly, it is pointing to that location. File is there or not, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can check my points and the explanation also. Yep. So then alone file class, no. Then to write something into it, file writer. So file writer, F and W are capitals. Predefined class, I'm using control space, enter. Import statement is added in line number 4. Okay. After having this file writer, then object reference of programmer choice equals new file writer. File writer class can have a path directly or can use the existing object also. Okay. So first what I'll do, this entire string format, I'll copy and here I'll paste it. Done? Yeah. So now file class is required or not required? Not required because file writer can communicate directly. If it is not there, it will create and it will write it. Okay. That's what the point I would like to prove. So for this, I'm not using this file. I'm writing only file writer. But still while we are getting error, can anybody? Why we are getting right hand side error? What if the file is not there? What if the file is not there? File writer will create it. But still tomorrow somebody may delete or somebody may move that location. Therefore, file not found exception will come. Compiler is not allowing now. Exception has to be handled. In how many approaches we can handle? Two different approaches. One thing is try catch block, one thing is throws class. So here I'll focus more on files concept. Therefore, I'll throw. How to throw? Class header or method header? Method header. Which keyword? Throws keyword. Then space. What's the exception that comes? File not found. We should know this naming and case sensitivity also. Otherwise, we can't write the code. Yeah, it is not imported. It is also present in the IO package. Now it is done. Yeah. So still why we are getting error? Because now here is a problem. So this yum method is throwing. Now who has to handle? Main method. Can main method also throw? Possible, but never recommended. But so here from at least from main method, we have to handle by using try catch. So use the managerial technique. Don't try to write the code. So surround with try catch, click on this, that's it. It's done. It's done. Yeah. So here, why still we are getting the error? Yeah, why still we are getting the error? Anybody? So if it is not handled, then at a time of closing connection of this file writer, because it's an external source, we have to close it in try catch finally block, right? So in finally block, we have to write something else. So because of that, it is throwing a further error. So when we don't close it, then we'll get the IO exception also. Yeah, that's why. Now when we have file not found exception, when we have IO exception also, then which is the parent most exception and which is child most exception? IO exception is parent, file not found is a child. Then to handle both exceptions in catch block, we should have child or parent. Parent can handle both child and parent exceptions, or child can have both parent and child exceptions. Come on. Yeah, when we want to write multiple catch blocks. What is the sequence of multiple catch blocks? First child followed by parent also. Now what we have written? Only child we have written. Then is it having a capacity of handling IO exception? Child has the capacity to handle IO exception. Come on here. No. Parent can handle both child and parent exceptions, but child can't handle both parent and child exceptions. That's why we have to add one more catch block also. What's the catch block? The catch block, which exception? IO exception. That's why hierarchy is very, very important. Some even I'll use it, then the body. Then IO exception is also present in IO package, import it. Now all errors got removed. That's the story. Yeah. So this is where exceptions will come into very important when it comes to this files concept and SQL programs whenever you are using in Java. Then very important, and the order everything. Otherwise, we'll not understand what's happening. First of all, we should know the concept first. Then now do we have abc.txt in our file? No. But file writer, if it is not there, file writer can create it. Yes. Now let us see. I saved everything. Right click, run as Java application. Now let's go back to desktop, the same folder, the same subfolder. Now you can see abc.txt. Who created this? File writer created it. Then any content is there? Nothing, because we did not write anything. Right? I'll close this here. We did not write anything in the content, therefore no content there. Then now we'll go and give the content. So how to write something? By using this file writer object dot which method? For writing, simply write method. That's it. Write. But writing, I said there is some limitation. You observe what is allowed to write? Char square brackets means character array. Group of characters only we can write it. The next what? Int. It looks like integer, but when we write it integer, then it will take ASCII value. That also we'll see. The next one, string. The next one, character array means group of characters only. Then string also. Then null writer, nothing. Okay. So here I'm going to use one of these write methods. And first I'm going to give some 100. Some 100. Then by using next once again file header object. Okay, we'll see. I'll write later. So currently I've written 100. Then let me right click and run the application. Now let's go back and check. On desktop, in this files folder, there is a file called abc.txt. Now when I open, did we get anything? But I wrote something 100, no? It should give something. Why it is not giving? Yeah, therefore it should be 100 or something should be there, whether we can read or not. That's the secondary point. Why it is not there? Did I do any mistake? No. There is one more important point. Whenever we are writing these contents into this file, there is one more predefined method called as, somebody is writing something. How to know which exception will come at what time? So what you are using, file writer you are using, then that will throw exception of file not found exception. When you don't close it, then it is not a proper way. So for that also it will throw one exception called as IO exception that comes with the practice. Okay. So my point is, whenever we are writing this content into a file, to make sure everything will be written into the file, there is a method called as flush method. Flush. Yeah. Flush method is something like which will make sure each and every content, each and every character of entire statement or word will be written into the file. It is something like whenever we have a rice bag, from rice bag, we are pouring rice into one container, one box, another box. The every little grain will go directly. No, sometimes if it is a what type of bag, jute bag, then that will struck with the bag only, no? But we will shake that bag so that that small grain also will go into the box. Same thing here also. Flushed method will make sure that it will send every small letter or every small content from writers into the file. That's why now let me add flush and let us check, is it really because of flush or not? So what I'm doing on this file writer, fw dot which method? Flush method I'm using. That's the only change I made. Correct? Now let us save this. Control S. I right click. I go back. I execute this. It is done. Now what we'll do? I'll minimize. I'll go to this folder. I'll open this folder. I'll open this. Now what is that? Small d is there? No. You can see or you cannot see. Small d is there. It means flush method has make sure that everything will be written into the file. And why 100? Because, sorry, why d? Small a 97, small b 98, c 99, d 100. So when we are giving in integer type of input called 100, but it is taking its ASCII value, then can I write 100 into the file? No, that's a limitation of file writer. It's not possible. Clear? That's the importance of flush method. We must write it. Then there is one more thing. For everything, for every external objects other than something out of lang package, whatever we import, we must close them. Otherwise, it's unnecessary memory consumption. So fw is a file writer object dot close the connections. Where we should suppose to write this closing connections? In finally block. But are we handling? No, we are throwing. That's why I'm just writing here directly. This will take care about it if exception occurs. That's the reason IO exception is required. Understood? Then in the same, after this first write, I'm using fw dot write. Dot write. This time, let us give something as string. In double quotes, I'm writing something called as Java is platform independent is my statement. I have written something, save it, right click, go to run as Java application. Don't open the previous file. It will not be updated. It will not be updated. Every change, we have to reopen the file once again. So that's why I go to this folder, file, again text file. Now you observe, where is that? In the same line or separate line? Same line. D after Java is platform independent is there. So this is what we expect. No, my intention is I want to write this in separate line. But by default, this file writer will write the content in same line. Then as a programmer, what we have to do? we have to use the escape sequence backward slash n for a new line. That backward slash n will makes the content into next line. Then Java is platform independent will appear separately in the next line. I executed by control F11. Now I'll go back and check. You can see D followed by next line Java is platform independent. That's the purpose of the escape sequence called n. So if you want to write some 100 lines, then 100 times backward slash n is required. 100 separate lines if you want to write it, then file writer has no capacity to write by default in next line, no method such like that. Then we have to use backward slash n only, no other option. Clear? File writer can create the file writer can communicate with the file directly, and by default it writes in the same line. We have to use backward slash n for next line approach. It has a limitation of writing character and string only. Clear? Then which one is the next one? Buffer writer. So our file, this writing I'll close. I'll close it. The next I'll create buffered writer is under predefined class. Control space to get the import statement. Enter. BW is my object. Then new buffer writer. Then here I'm not giving any input. Semicolon. Done. This is the object creation. Why we are getting error? Does buffer writer can communicate with file directly? No. Then let us see. We'll give the path and we'll check. I am giving the file path. So still the same above file only. I'm copying and I'm pasting here. Is it accepted? No, buffer writer has no capacity to communicate with a file. So then no exceptions and all. It's not exception. It's because of this incorrect code. Then if buffer writer needs which object? File writer object. So therefore, now let me give FW. It's accepted. Yes, buffer writer needs file writer object to communicate. Otherwise, it cannot communicate at all. Done. Next, by using this buffer writer object, we can write the content. So that's which method again? Write method only. BW is the object of this buffer writer dot which method? Write method. Now again you see what's the limitation? It also has a character. Integer means characters only again. String again character array, character array. Same like file writer only. So buffer writer. So I'll use one of these write methods and I'll write something as 1, 2, 3, or otherwise known thing only will take so that we'll understand. Then followed by BW dot write of Java. Done. 2 times we are using write method. Now, so do we have any file writer writing content? File writer, it is I have taken away from the code. So therefore, the fresh content 100 and Java will be there. That is D and Java will be there in the file. So I have already saved it. Let me right click, run as Java application. Now I'll minimize. I go back to this. I open the text file. What is there? Content is not there. Why? Yes, exactly. We have to use the flushed method on buffer writer also. Previously we are using on file writer, but now there is no file writer. The same thing I'll change to buffer writer, bw.flush. Save it. Again re-execute. Only for saving will not make the reflections. Now re-execute and also reopen. You can see D and Java. The same buffer writer also has same problem of writing content in the same line. Yes, what's the solution? New line. So once we write this 100, then to get the content in next line on buffer writer object, we have a method called as new line method. So now first it will write 100 means D, then it goes to new line, then it will write Java. So that is the order of execution of this buffer writer. I'll reopen to see the reflections, reopen. You can see here. So this is about the buffer writer. You can write any number of lines, but each time one line followed by new line and one content followed by new line again. Within quotes, in double quotes. Yeah, that is string format only. Number in string format. Yeah. So this is about the first two writers. Then to avoid all previous problems, then to have a solution for each and every writing requirements, the Java has come up with one more writer called as a print writer. Print writer. What is this print writer? It is a predefined class. Yeah. Print writer can create the file if it is not there. Yeah. Print writer can write in same line, can write in separate lines also. It depends on the methods that we have to use, correct? Previously, there is only one write method. There is no other write, new line and all those things. So for print writer, we can write in separate same line if you want. We can write in separate lines if you want. By using print writer, we can write integer type of data, character type of data, string data, boolean data, float data. Everything is possible with print writer only. So therefore, print writer is called as a most enhanced writer. Most enhanced writer means with all facilities. So therefore, people will don't use file writer, people will not use buffer writer, they'll use only print writer. Yeah, because it's a solution for all previous problems. Then we will see directly the syntax. So since it can communicate, when there is a text file called as say example abc.txt text file, only print writer object is enough. That's it. No need of file, no need of file writer, no need of buffer writer. It can do all the jobs by on itself. It doesn't need any dependency. Okay. That we will see in the same code. I remove this everything. Here also, I remove everything. Let us discuss separately for print writer. So I'll take out everything. Then only class is there. Object creation is there. That's all. So then here, first let me create the print writer. Again, W capital, P capital. Writer, control space to import java.io package. Then PW is my reference. Then a new print writer. Then here I am going to give the file path. But previously already we are using abc.txt. Now I'll create something called as java.txt. Let us see. It will create or not. So once we have this object, then here these are not imported. I'll go for control space enter. Then here also I'll use control space enter. For execution, which method we have to call? T.yum method we have to call. So calling this yum method is a risky thing. So we have to write in surround with try multiple catch blocks I'm using. Now you can see which is it is adding. JVM is so clever that IO exception will handle both file not found and IO exception also. So it is writing that much, that one only. Okay. So even though we are choosing multiple cache blocks, it knows that this will handle both. Then, so by using this print writer, PW dot, which method? Write method is there. If you want to write in same line, write method is there. Then PW dot print method also there. If you want to write in same line, we can go for print method also. But there is one more called println method also there. Println method. What is this? Print and go to next line. So we are using somewhere this. Are we using println somewhere? Where? Right from day one system.out.println. Where it is coming from? It's coming from print writer. Okay. Then here println, what we can write? Nothing we can write. Boolean we can write. Character we can write. Char array we can write. Double, float, int, long, string, object. Everything is there. So we can write by using print writer. Everything we can write it. Now I'll take one integer to show that number is possible this time. Then next, do we need to use any escape sequence called /n? No. Do we need to use any new line method? No. Println itself. Print means print. Ln means new line. That's what the meaning of it. Again, pw dot println. Println method. So this time I'll choose some character. Here also I'll give character 100 only, wantedly. Let us see what's the difference. Then we can write something, strings and all those things. But what's the most important? Pw dot flush. Then followed by close the connection, pw dot close the connections. That's it. These two things I'm taking. So we are checking print writer can create the file or not. Print writer can write both integers and also characters or not. And also it will write in same line or separate lines. All those things we are observing through one single program. Now it is saved. I run from here. I'll go to that folder. So I'm opening this. You can see Java is there. I'll open in this. You can see 100 and 100. Yeah. So then how do we make sure that it is character then? pw dot println. Now which one I'm choosing? Char C. So if you are writing 100, then that will take 100 only. We have to write a character if you want to add a character. Because it's a separate specific character method is there. So therefore, we have to give the character input only. Now this will write the characters. Okay. If you are giving 100, it is also integer only. Why it will convert into its ASCII value? Because there is a separate method for integers, separate method for a character also. Right. That's why. Let us save it. Okay. I have to run it first. Control F11 on my keyboard. Control F11. Now let us go back and reopen this file. You can see there is a character also. We have to use character for character method and character format of input, and we have to use number for number or integer kind of input only. Okay, so this is the most enhanced writer. So I am not using all possible methods of string input, character input, boolean and all. So it depends on your requirements in a real time. You can use these methods to write it separately. Yeah. After this print, you observe I'm using print there. Then I'll use the next write method. Write method, and here I'm taking something, again some number. Okay. Now tell me where this 100 will appear. Same line or separate line? Same line, because what we are using here, ln is not there. So therefore it will print in the same line only. So like we discussed, print writer has capacity of writing in the same line, writing in separate lines also. It has everything. Okay. We can use print or we can use write also. Clear? Write method has only limitations of character and string only. Even if we are giving number, it's ASCII value only bigger. Write method I am using. Just observe the code. Write method is same as like buffer writer, print writer, because it's a inheritance. They did not leave that inheritance. Yeah, but they added new methods in the println to solve all the problems faced by the developers. Yeah. So this is about only writer's story. Writers. This is about writers. Now we have to read it. From where? From file, you read into Java, Eclipse, I mean console. Okay. That is where the next concept comes, called readers concept. When it comes to reading the data, there are only two readers are there. One is file reader. What is file reader? Is a predefined class. Then it is used to file reader, FR, is used to read data in which format? Same as like writer, character by character only. That's the limitation. Yeah. File reader can create the file. No. Writing means it's a meaning that create and write it. But for reading, if it is not there and you create, what will be there? Nothing will be there, right? That's why file reader cannot create the file for reading the data. If it is there only, it will read it. Then it needs some object or not? It needs some object or not? Yes. File reader needs file object. File object will refer to the file. File reader will read it. Understood? And that's about the file reader. This is the only limitation. It will reading a character by character is the only limitation or problem. That's why buffered it is there. Buffered reader is the next reader. What is the purpose of it? It is also a predefined class. It is used to read the content in line by line format. Can it communicate with file directly? File reader only can't communicate. Buffer reader not at all communicate. Buffer reader needs which object? File reader object. same thing. So first will be a file, something like some text file is there. So here file object is required. Then on file object, then there is a file reader. On file reader, buffer reader is there. BR. Yeah. So this can't communicate directly, because it's meaningless in reading format. And a buffer reader can't communicate with file. It need definitely file reader object only. This is the flow. Yeah. So, and there is no further requirement. Reading, we can read a character by character from a file. We can read a line by line file. So can we read a passage by passage? That's never required. That's why there is no print reader concept. Okay. So for that, I'm going to use the same file. I'll delete everything. Here also, I'll remove these throws. We'll understand what exceptions will come. Then we'll add it accordingly. Then from main method also, only object creation I'm keeping it. I remove everything. Now what's our requirement? Read the content from the file, correct? So first let me make it in this. So here the files folder, here I'm taking a new text file, new text document. I'll name this as, what is this? July.txt. That's a text file. So in this text file, this is files class, and then we use readers. Okay, first we use writers to write the content into file from Java. Then we use readers to read the content from files to Java. Yeah. Then which are input streams and which are output streams? Readers are input or output? Writers are input or output? Readers are? Yeah, there is a misconception. Readers are inputs. Writers are? Writers are input or output? Writers are inputs. Others? Everybody will say the same thing. Tell me. Yeah. Writers only output. So then others will say reverse. Okay. So now remember this clearly. From Java, when we write the content, it is going out from Java or it's coming into Java. When we use writers. When we use writers, from Java program, it is going to the file, or from file, it is coming to Java. From Java, it is going outside. That's why they are output streams. Writing is output. It is a little bit confusion. Okay. Then reading, from outside, we are getting into Java. That's why they are inputs. Okay. So now this is the content which I have in my text file. Let me, yeah, I hope it is saved. I'll cross verify. Yeah, it is there. It is there. This is the content which I have. Now let me close all these tabs. Okay, everything it is asking to save it. Yeah, done. It's there. Now what we'll do, we'll come to Java. We'll try to read it. For reading, I'm creating file reader object directly. File reader, control space, import from java.io package. They are also present the same. FR for reader, then new control space, file reader, then in double quotes, I'm using the file path. Yeah, just a second. I'll reopen the same thing. So here, what is the thing that I need to make? So I have to make this some control changes. Okay. It is taking the path double time. So what I'll do, I'll save it. I'll go back to this. I'll get the path. Up to files I'm getting. So Control C, go back to Java and paste it here within double quotes. Done. Now what's our file name? I'm using java.txt. It's accepted? Yes or no? Yes. Why we are getting error here? So we are getting some syntax error. Does file reader can communicate with the file? Yes, if it is there. Sorry. Yes, if it is there, then it can communicate with a file. Okay. So now I am trying to read it. fr dot which method? For reading, read method only. Fr dot read it. So I'm reading something here. So whatever I'm reading, I want to print it. We have to print that also. That's why this entire line of code, I cut it. I use the print statement to print. Fr dot read method is reading something from the java.text and I am printing in our console. Let us see what is output of this one. Control S, Control F11. Yeah, so I have two openings, two closings. That's it. Okay, something is missing here. No, main method is I removed by mistake. Yeah. So now we are getting there. Yeah, correct. Why we have to get there now? Because it's not because of double semicolons. Because if a file is not there, we may get the exception, file not found exception, then throws. So when we are throwing, then we have to call that from the main method first. And while calling, this will become a risky code. Let us add try catch. Done. So now by using this fr system.out.println print fr dot which method? Read method. Multiple read methods are there. Read which returns the integer, then read which returns the integer. It returns integer, integer, and this returns, okay, only these four read methods are there. I'm choosing the first one. What is the return type? What is this read method return type there? Integer, correct? Then why we are getting this error? So it is also asking again try catch block. This will cause IO exception. So here it will, we go for surrounding this one in plus instead of that IO exception. If we add, it will take care of both. Done. So now save it. Control F11 to execute. What's output we got? 49. 49 we are getting. Don't worry why we are getting, but we are getting 49. Correct? What is the content there in the file? Yeah. So sorry, July.txt. Yeah. So what's the content there in the file? What's the content there? Come on, guys. So it is reading one space. It is reading one space there. Okay, Java, then we'll see what is there in Java. Yeah. So it is reading something like a space there. It is reading something like a space. Then for this to avoid, we can just cross verify that method calling and that will be same only. So to read entire thing, I'm using a while. By using loop, we are reading everything. So while fr dot read, fr dot read method, yeah, is not equals to null. As long as it is not null, means start from starting, read entire everything. So once it is nothing, once there is no content, then that will become a null. So then till that point of time, read everything. Okay. So I'll use, just wait. system.out.println, I'll print fr dot read. Yeah. So if it is not null, then read the content from the file into this, and simply it is already Boolean type, then I can use not. So fr dot read method. Yeah, double equals null is not correct because it is integer and we are comparing with null. Fr dot ready equals get class hash code read. Just a second. Fr dot read method. This read method, it is returning integer type. Okay. So once it is returning integer, then let me store that into, yeah. So what I'd like to read is fr dot read method, which is returning integer. Then I'll store that into some variable called integer. Then that's fine. Then if that integer is, if it is greater than some 0, still we can read and print it. Let me check first. Yeah, it is reading -1, -1, -1 because it is not null. So once the entire content is over, then it will become, okay, I stopped forcefully. Hmm. If it is not equals to 0, no, still I think we'll get the same. Still we'll get the same only. Yeah, so for reading this read method, then to read each and every content, then fr dot read, that we can convert into any type, characters, integers, and all those things. Then we can print. It will not read all the data. Okay. Uh, File reader. So then let us check with buffer reader because file reader has some limitation. So I'll go with buffered reader. Then br equals new buffer reader, control space to import. Then file reader as object reference is mandatory for this buffer reader. Then br dot read method, read line. Okay. Br dot read line. On file reader, we don't have the read line method. So now this read line method will give some result. This will give some result. What I'll do, that result I'll print in print statement. Okay. So we are reading that line from the buffer reader and we are printing that. Now let me execute control F11. So it is reading from java.txt as 100. Now let me make it as july.txt, save it, execute it. So this is files class. Yeah, by default, which line it is reading? First line. Then, so here to read everything. So while loop I'm using, while loop inside this one, buffer reader object dot, there is a method called as read line. What's return type? String. So therefore here I can use not equals null. If it is not equals null, then here read it system dot out dot println, then br dot which method? Read line is the method. Yeah, then string. So now let me remove the previous single line printing. Let me save it. Let us run this file now. You can see what is happening. We'll use writers to write the content into a file. Which line it is reading? Second line, right? So by default, previously, br read the first line. First line, then it is going to the next. Then what we have to use? Br dot next is a method? No. Br dot to for the cursor to go to next line, there is a method. We have to check and use that method actually. Close equals get class hash code lines mark notify read. Yeah, let me use the br.read method. Then after reading that, we'll check the content. We use writers to write the content from the file. Now read line and print it, then it should go for the next for dot some next br dot read line. Yeah, so now let me save it. Let me execute it. What happened? So we use writers to write the content into a file, but we have something else also, right? After that, yeah, we have 3 lines. We have 3 lines. Yeah, so it is reading second line. Once we read it, it will check and then it will print. Then it should go to next line. It should go to next line. So for that, it is like while loop incrementation to go to next line. That is where some br dot all these available methods. Wait, and then transfer, skip, reset, ready. Read line already I'm using. Only read, notify all, mark lines something. Okay, br dot close br dot some next line approach or something will be there. I didn't remember exactly. Okay, this one part of I'll check it and I'll let you know what is the exact code to read each and every line from the buffer reader, because file reader has a limitation of reading only character by character, but by using buffer reader we can read the line by line, and this is the loop based approach to read the content by using buffer reader. But why it is not moving to the next line? Until unless it is not null, then it will read. That's no problem. But after printing, after reading one line, then for the cursor to go to next line, so here we have to use some method. Even all the methods that I'm checking there, nothing sounds meaningful. That's what if we can't write br plus plus, no.